Hello. No, don't. Hello, you big softy. You big softy. Don't eat the lens cap. What I want to talk about is retro stuff, music and gaming, and not... How can I explain myself? When I was a kid, I was kind of subjected to 50s music by my dad. That's what he liked to listen to, that's what he played. And I hated it. I thought it was the most god-awful racket I'd ever heard. 50s rock and roll, you know. I'm not even going to name the bands. They're just the most god-awful racket, and I hated them. I still hate them. Don't like any of that, anything from that era. 50s, early 60s. Hell, he even went back and listened to some 40s stuff, you know, World War II, Vera Lynn, and God knows whatever else. So anyway, when I was like in school, in my early teens, there were kids who were the same age as me who listened to 50s rock and roll, and I didn't understand, why would you want to listen to that crap? Why would you want to listen to the stuff your dad listened to when he was your age? I have a dog here being an arsehole. Hello, Max. Do you want to go out? That's a big yes. Okay, where was I? I can't actually remember. So, yes, there were kids my age who listened to that 50s music, 50s rock and roll, the stuff their dads listened to. Hello. And I couldn't understand why. Because to me, and most other kids my age, if you were a young teen and you listened to 50s rock and roll, you were a complete nerd. Not just geek, a nerd. Being a geek is good, being a nerd is not. And if you listened to 50s rock and roll, you were a nerd. It was not cool. You were mocked and ridiculed, and to my mind, rightly so. Anyway, this brings me to now. I'm 41, and I love 80s music, and I love games from the 80s era. And I can understand why anyone who is 30-something, 40-something would really enjoy music, gaming, whatever, from the 80s era. It's nostalgia. It was there when you grew up. It was cool. It was fun. You grew up with it. It developed with you. And so you know what context it's coming from. When you look at an old game, you know what came before it, you know what came after it, you know, you can see it in context. And the music, you can listen to, oh, I don't know, A Flock of Seagulls, and you know what other bands were around at the same time, who was influencing who was popular, who was a one-hit wonder. You can see it all in context. You know where it came from, you know where it went to. And I completely understand the people who are into that, who are 30-ish, 40-ish, something like that. What I don't understand is the teens and early 20-somethings who are into the retro gaming, like 80s, and the retro music, again, 80s. I don't understand. I think they have excellent taste, because it is really good music, in my opinion, but I don't understand what do they get out of it, because they don't get nostalgia. And if you compare, certainly the games, and a lot of the music in fact, with modern stuff, it's pretty naff in comparison. You know, production values of 80s music was often quite ropey. And games, obviously, you know, they've come on so hugely. So I don't understand why teens and 20-somethings would be into the retro stuff, the 80s stuff. But what I really am interested in is how are they viewed by their peers. Like I say, when I was a kid, if you were into 50s stuff, you were an utter nerd. So now, if you're 17, 18, and you're listening to the Human League, Heaven 17, Ultravox, A Flock of Seagulls, Gary Newman, Duran Duran, Japan, what's his name, John Fox. If you're listening to all of that, what do your mates think of you? Are they like, kid's a nerd, he's a freak, what's he listening to that shit for? Or are they saying, wow, he's got great taste, that is really cool music. What is it? Where can I get it? What are they saying? What are they thinking? I don't know. I am really curious about that. Is it still nerdy to be into old stuff that was made before you were born, that your dad listened to? And games. Is it cool to be a teen, a retro gamer? I mean, it's like when I was 13, 14, 17, whatever, it was not cool to play with your dad's train set. It really, really wasn't. I get the impression it is cool to be into retro gaming, even when it was like from before you were born. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. I am very curious about it. I know I do get a little bit agitated sometimes. I mean, there's a bit of me that is an elitist bastard. And if I get some teen 20-something telling me, oh yeah, this game's great because, and I'm sitting there thinking, don't talk to me about why that game is great. I was there when that came out, and it's a piece of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Because context, it matters. It's like, this evening I was watching a video by Sieg Sputnik, Love Missile F-111, and all the comments were like, yeah, Sieg Sputnik, they're fantastic, they're brilliant, awesome, blah blah, and I'm sitting there thinking, you idiots, you have got no idea what you're talking about. When Sieg Sputnik came out, Britain had just gotten over Frankie Goes to Hollywood, realising they weren't actually these hugely famous, rich megastars, fantastic musicians, any of that. They were basically a bunch of louts who had this one good song, and Trevor Horn took them, stuck them in the studio, then completely ignored everything they did in the studio, and produced the whole album, singles and everything, on his Fairlight, and what was the other thing he got? What's it called? An emulator too, something or other. Anyway, sampling keyboards, basically. He produced everything. Holly Johnson was really the only one who had anything to do with any of that music. So anyway, Britain had gotten the idea that just because you're on telly making music doesn't mean you're any good, or much less famous or talented. So Sieg Sputnik came along, and we were like, yeah, we've seen this before, flashy video, but your music's really shit, and look, you're not playing any of it. It sold fairly well. And I can see why, looking at it now, you might think, that's pretty good, because Tony James does a pretty good Bo Diddley riff on that guitar. But you look at it, really, and there's not an awful lot else going on. There's a sequencer going da-da-da-da-da-da, and a drum machine doing much the same. Martin Degville throwing the odd word at the mic every now and then. He's not singing, he really isn't. There is no melody there, that's not a song. And just this Bo Diddley riff here, there and everywhere, and a few samples getting chucked around. It is shite. But here are all these kids looking at these videos saying, yeah, it's fantastic, because there's a good video. They have no concept of where this was coming from at the time, no context to put it in. So at first glance, you might think that's pretty good, but if you know about it, you'll realise it's shit. And that's what I'm talking about. Actually, I've forgotten what I was talking about. I went on such a rant about that. The funny thing is, I have Love Missile F-111 on vinyl. I had the album. I think I might still have it. But yes, if you're into the retro stuff now, and it's stuff from before you were born, when you can't appreciate it in context, is it cool? I don't know. That's an honest question. I'm not slagging off anyone who is into that stuff from before they were born. I like the Doors. I like the Velvet Underground, I like Led Zeppelin. Now, I may have been born when all of those were doing their thing, but I certainly wasn't old enough to know what it was all about. So, 80s, it's my thing. I was there, I knew what it was all about, I was old enough to understand what was going on. What is it? What is the score, being into stuff from before you were born? Is it cool? Is it cool with your peers? That is really what I want to know. And it is an honest question. I don't know. I would like to know. I don't know how many of my viewers are actually young enough to be able to answer that question. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Thank you for watching.